Hi, my name is Rebecca. I'm a homeschool mom, part of this homeschool group. I want to thank Dawn and thank Angela and Elisa very much for the group. It's really a great community and I've been enjoying all the content. I want to share a little bit about myself. I'm a mom to two children. I've got a 6-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl. Homeschooled most of my life, except for a few years I went to public school. And I also, before I became a mom, I was a Montessori teacher. I worked in a Montessori classroom for about 8 years and got my Montessori teaching certificate. And then also, right now I'm a writer and editor, but I'm also homeschooling my boy. And yeah, so I was inspired by the Zoom or the Facebook Live that was done with Janet, and I have a passion for just teaching kids and child development. And when I was listening to that meeting, which was so helpful and had so many great ideas, it kind of lit a fire, and I thought, oh yeah, I was triggering all of these other ideas of ways that I've worked with kids with just some basic letter formation, letter sounds, and such. And I wanted to share those here on the group to see if there might be something that might be helpful to somebody. Um, I think that sometimes Montessori can get a little bit of a bad rap because there are schools that take the Montessori philosophy and curriculum as an excuse to push children along it quickly. And I don't think that is necessarily in the true spirit of the Montessori. And I really don't believe in pushing kids. It's more that and from the true Montessori philosophy is that you find out, where your child is, where the child is, and you work with them from there, and you help to sort of spark their interest and allow that creative process and that inner drive in the child, and you support that to come forth rather than pushing them along. So I wanted to say that because I know that in this Facebook group, it's really great that there's really an emphasis on not pushing, allowing for a lot of creative play, a lot of time, which is to me one of the most beautiful things about homeschooling is you can give your children the gift of time, the gift of childhood. Anyways, so I wanted to share this a little bit about basically handwriting, letter sounds, and some of the things that you can do from things in your home without a curriculum that might support and also teach your children some basic handwriting, letter formation, as well as support them in learning their sounds. When we talk about letter formation or handwriting, we're really talking about two different skill sets, two different components. Yes, there may be more, but there are two basic ones. One of the things that Montessori says is she really talks about indirect preparation. So indirect preparation is where you take the skill sets of a specific academic skill, for example, handwriting. You would break it into different parts and then work on those parts separately as an indirect preparation. When we think about handwriting, there are two different skills. One is the mechanics of it. So that might be your finger strength, the finger coordination, the ability to hold the pencil. And then the other component you have is the letter formation. So what is the muscle memory on how to make the letters? Down the bat, around the ball. So that's letter formation. So what you can do is you can split those two skills separately before you even have your child hold a pencil and work on those independently of one another. So let's talk a little bit about finger strengthening. So finger strengthening and coordination is really something that I'm sure happens every day in your house. So that might be helping with cooking. What are some of the ways that your child uses, we call this a bird beak finger, the two fingers. What are some of the ways that your child uses these fingers that helps them strengthen them? So maybe that's holding a pitcher. And so when you're thinking about coordination and finger strengthening, you're thinking about ways to help that manipulation. So even some of those things, what toys, Legos that they're putting together, that's one thing. Of course, you have clay, you have Play-Doh. There are pipettes, those things that fill up with water that you could do art with. These are all ways to help support your child in their motor and their fine motor skills. I brought this thing. This is a dried ear of corn. This one is a little small. I tried to find a larger one. And this is a tweezers. And so what you can do is you can take this and just tweeze off, have your child show them how to do the bird beak and work on tweezing off the kernels of corn. And it is amazing how kids love this. It almost becomes an obsession for them. I brought it home and my kids are like, we're done with 3 of these already. Can we do them all? And of course, sometimes they'll just use their fingers too. But what they're doing is they're strengthening their fingers. And as long as it's coming from them as an internal motivation, as something they're wanting to do, they're not going to harm themselves. They're going to stop when they're ready to be done. And so, but I've had kindergarten boys in my classroom literally spend the whole morning, 2 hours, just taking off pieces of corn. And there they are strengthening their fingers for holding a pencil. And so these are just a couple ideas. You certainly don't have to go out and buy anything. There's probably plenty of things you have at home that can support this. There's also those perler beads or fuse beads where they use their tweezers to pick out the beads to make shapes and then you iron them. That's great for finger strengthening and coordination. There's an infinite variety of ways that you can support your child in that way. And then you could check it off as their language, as their handwriting. Maybe in some of, if you're in a state that has the long curriculum hours, maybe you feel comfortable doing that. So that's some of the finger strengthening things that you can do. But then there's also ways, and this is what Jenna was talking about that sparked my kind of remembering and inspiration for this, was that you can practice letter tracing without even holding a pencil. And so this might be especially helpful for those who just have really struggled with a pencil, but they're in an age they need to be doing some of their letters, they need to be tracing letters, learning them, but the pencil is just challenging. So you're practicing the strengthening separate, and then you're also doing the letter formation separate. So here's a couple ways that you can practice letter formation without a pencil. And there's sensorial ways to do that, meaning using your fingers and using your senses of your fingers for that. And in Montessori, they have the sandpaper letters, but you don't have to have sandpaper letters. What I have here is a tray full of sand. And this could be a tray of rice. This could be you could do colored rice. There are different ways you can do it. And basically what you can do is learn how to trace the letters in the sand and work on that muscle memory that Jenna was talking about. So I might write an A or an A next to, on a piece of paper next to the tray and say, look, this is the letter A. We're going to learn how to make A. And then I would probably put this tray right in front of my child, right there, and then lean over and trace the letter so that they could see me trace the letter directly in front of them. We're going to make A. And then I would put my finger in the sand. A. So what I did is I traced the letter A. I went like this. A. Would you like to trace A? You can ask your child, would they like to trace the letter A? Because this is the most exciting thing ever, is to trace in the sand. It really is. It's very fun for them. And then you can shake it out a little bit, so you can kind of still see the letter formed or all the way. And then you can invite them to trace the letter. And so you might do this, have them trace it once or twice or 3 times, and then you can say, oh, you traced your A today. Would you like to go play? And that's it. That's as easy and as simple as it can be. And the idea is that you're building an excitement, it's fun, and they're wanting to come back and do more. And more than likely, they're going to want to do it again or trace more sounds. And then if you're comfortable, you could let them play in the sand a little bit afterwards. There are other ways also that you can practice letter tracing without a pencil. I brought this. I filled this bag up with some dollar store paint, just tempera paint. You really don't need that much paint. I put a little bit too much in it. But the idea is this is also a way that you can trace letters in this. And if you have it against a flat surface, you can tape it on a window, put it on your table. You can trace your letters in something like that. Shaving cream's another option. Also, you can do it on do big letters on your window with the erasable dry markers. And that's nice because you can hold the pencil. I think Jenna even said that, rather hold the marker with a fist. So you're not needing to have that coordination, that finger strength. You can have a big kind of like infantile grasp is what they call it. And then you can trace these big letters. You can also trace them in the air. We're going to trace B in the air. Remember how we traced it in the sand? Now we're going to do it in the air. And you can go down the bat, around the ball. Down the bat, around the ball. Would you like to try to make as big of a B as you can? Can you say B? And so these are just examples of ways that they can have that muscle memory and start to learn how those letters are formed, as well as learning the sounds. And so then when you're ready to put the skills together, meaning put the pencil in their hand and the writing, you've already practiced these skills separately. And shaving cream is another way you can trace letters. You can get a big tray, send them outside, maybe trace a couple letters in the shaving cream, and then let them go to town playing with shaving cream, which is great sensorial experience for them, especially children who might have sensory integration challenges. If they'll even do it. Some kids won't even do it. But those are just a few ideas. Shaving cream in the bathtub, on the wall of the bathtub. You know, at bath time, you can do a couple letter sounds and call that good for your language. Then when you're ready to put them, or your child's ready to put, you hold the pencil. Maybe they've been practicing some of the letters, formation. You might have your sand tray back out and say, remember when we traced at in the sand? Would you like to trace it on the paper now? And so the progression that you could use for the letters would be just a blank piece of paper, a white piece of paper with no lines. And so you could trace the letter in the sand and then maybe make a big A on the paper. And then you could turn it over. Would you like to do a big A? Then you do a big A. And so you're starting big. You could do maybe some other smaller A's inside your big A. And you're just working without the lines. And then once the child's kind of gotten familiar with the way to form the letters on the paper without the lines, you can get online the kind of paper with the midline. And I would even maybe try to find something really big or even trace it yourself with the lines on either side and then the midline. And then you show them how the letters formed with the midline. And then after that, you could maybe graduate to a little bit smaller with the smaller lines and the midline. And so those are ways that you can go from, the sand to the paper. Take your time, a letter, maybe 2 letters a day, a couple letters tracing, you're good to go. Okay, I hope that some of these things in this video might have been helpful for you. Maybe not. You could pick a few things ideas or none of them. I'm sure that what you're doing already for your child is wonderful. And yeah, I'm sure you're a rock star homeschool mom. All right, bye.